everyone, welcome back to the show. Today we're doing a deep dive into something that I think is pretty important for everyone, especially as we head into the new year.
Definitely.
We're going to be talking about avoiding common financial mistakes. But this isn't just any regular advice. We're going to be looking at insights from a really interesting podcast that I came across.
Oh, cool.
It's called SmartPodcast, and they had this financial expert named Patrick on, and he gave some really good advice for 2025 specifically. So it's like a financial fire drill, you know? Get ahead of the game before you make those mistakes.
I like that, a financial fire drill. I like it.
Yeah. So whether you're just starting out on your financial journey or you're already a seasoned investor, I think there's going to be some really good nuggets of wisdom in here for everyone.
Yeah. You know what's interesting is that so many of these financial pitfalls are things that we've always known about, right? Like they're not new.
Right.
But I think they become even more critical now with everything that's going on in the economy. Like things are changing so rapidly. And there are all these new challenges. And I think that's why it's so important to revisit these fundamental financial mistakes and really make sure we're not falling into those traps.
Exactly. So let's jump right into mistake number one. And this is a big one. Living paycheck to paycheck.
Oof. Yeah.
I think we've all been there at some point.
For sure.
You know, that feeling of just scraping by and waiting for that next paycheck to come in. And Patrick really emphasized that with the cost of living still going up in 2025, this is becoming even more of a problem for a lot of people.
It is. Yeah. And you know what? I think one of the biggest challenges with living paycheck to paycheck is that it leaves you so vulnerable. Like there's no safety net, right? If an unexpected expense pops up, like a car repair or a medical bill, suddenly it throws your entire budget off.
Completely, yeah. And he wasn't saying you have to live like a month or anything, you know, deprive yourself of all the joys in life.
Right.
But he was really emphasizing gaining control over your spending.
Yeah.
And he talked about the 50-30-20 rule. Have you heard of this?
Oh, yeah.
Where I'll allocate 50% of your income for your needs, 30% for your wants, and then 20% for savings and investments.
It's a classic for a reason, right?
Yeah. But you know what really struck me was his point about how most people don't even know where their money is going each month.
It's so true.
Like it just vanishes. Like, have you ever felt that way?
Oh, absolutely. I used to be terrible at that. You know, money would just disappear and I had no idea where it went. And that's where I think those budgeting apps are so helpful. You know, like Mint or YNB,
Yeah.
they really help you track everything, you know, like categorize your spending, set up a budget. And some of them can even help you tailor that 50320 rule to your own specific circumstances.
It's almost like having a financial GPS, you know,
Exactly.
guiding you towards where you want to go.
Exactly.
I used to think budgeting was all about deprivation,
Yeah, I know.
restriction, but now I see it as a way to empower myself. Like it's about making conscious choices with my money.
Absolutely. It's about taking control and being intentional with your spending.
All right, let's move on to mistake number 2. And this one, I'll admit I was guilty of for a long time.
Okay.
Ignoring inflation and not investing.
Ooh, yeah. That's a big one.
So Patrick pointed out that a lot of people avoid investing because they're scared of the risk.
Yeah. It seems scary, right?
It does, but he said that not investing is actually riskier in the long run, especially with inflation. Like, think about it this way. Let's say you have $10,000 just sitting in a savings account.
Okay.
If inflation is at like 5%, you're basically losing about $500 in purchasing power every single year.
Your money is shrinking.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're slowly losing money just by not doing anything with it. And he was really adamant about not letting fear hold us back from investing.
I love that.
He said, we need to explore different options like stocks, ETFs, real estate. Like, what do you think about those? Especially for someone just starting out.
You know what really resonated with me was his advice to start small. He said, even just $50 a month can make a huge difference over time. And I think for beginners, index funds can be a really good entry point.
Okay.
You know, like they're basically like a basket of stocks that track a particular market index like the S&P 500. So it gives you diversification and potentially lower risk.
I always thought you needed like a ton of money to start investing.
Oh, yeah, I know.
So I just kept putting it off for years.
I did too.
And now I'm like, I wish I had started sooner because I missed out on all that compound growth.
It's never too late to start, though.
That's true.
Really, even if you can only invest a small amount, It's the consistency that matters, because that's how you harness the power of compound growth.
It's like those little acorns that grow into mighty oak trees.
Exactly. Your returns start generating their own returns over time, and it creates this snowball effect.
Speaking of snowball effects, let's talk about another mistake that can really snowball out of control: misusing credit cards.
Oh, those shiny pieces of plastic?
Right. I think we've all been tempted by them at some point.
For sure.
But Patrick was very firm on this one.
Yeah. What did he say?
He said you got to treat credit cards like debit cards. Spend only what you can afford to pay off in full each month.
Right.
Otherwise, you're just going to get sucked into that high-interest debt spiral.
And it can be so hard to get out of that hole once you're in it.
Like, it's easy to fall into the trap of making minimum payments, but that can keep you in debt for years, and you end up paying a fortune in interest.
It's crazy how much it can cost you.
Yeah. So paying off that high-interest credit card debt should be, like, a top priority.
For sure.
But on the flip side, he also said that building good credit is really important. Like, if you use credit responsibly and you pay your bills on time, you can actually boost your credit score.
Right.
And that can save you money in the long run.
Yeah.
Like, you'll get lower interest rates on both.
It's about finding that balance.
Exactly. It's like a dance.
Yeah.
You know, use it wisely and it can work in your favor. But if you're not careful, it can really bite you.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's move on to a topic that can be both exciting and a little bit scary. Buying a house.
Oh, yeah.
So mistake number 4 is buying a house at the wrong time.
Ooh, I feel like that's a mistake a lot of people make.
Yeah, and Patrick made a really interesting point. He said that renting isn't always throwing money away.
Okay.
Like, sometimes it can be the smarter choice.
Especially if you're not ready.
Exactly. Like, if you're not financially prepared for a mortgage, or you don't actually want all the responsibilities that come with owning a home.
It's a big commitment.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people feel pressured to buy a house, you know? Like, it's just what you're supposed to do.
Society pressure is real.
It is, but Patrick laid out some really clear criteria for when buying a house actually makes sense.
What did he say?
He said ideally you should have a 20% down payment,
Okay.
a stable income, and you should be planning to stay in the home for at least 5 to 7 years.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so it's not always a bad thing to rent.
Right.
Like, it gives you flexibility, and sometimes it can actually be the more financially sound option.
It all comes down to your individual circumstances.
Exactly. All right, let's talk about the last mistake Patrick highlighted, and this one feels really relevant in today's world: not having multiple income streams.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one.
He basically said that relying solely on one paycheck is becoming increasingly risky.
Especially, I don't know.
Yeah. With AI and automation and layoffs happening left and right.
It's a lot of uncertainty.
It is. It's like putting all your eggs in one basket, and if something happens to that basket, you're in trouble.
You're left vulnerable.
Yeah, so Patrick really emphasized the importance of diversifying your income streams.
Okay.
Like exploring side hustles, investments, passive income opportunities.
Like what?
There are so many options nowadays.
I know.
Like freelancing, creating online content, investing in rental properties. Like, the possibilities are endless.
It can feel overwhelming sometimes, though. You know, like, where do you even begin?
It can be, yeah. But I think the first step is just recognizing the importance of having multiple streams of income.
Okay.
And then start brainstorming ideas that align with your skills and your interests.
You know, what's interesting is that a lot of these side hustles or passive income streams, they can actually turn into something you're really passionate about.
Absolutely.
Like, it doesn't have to feel like work. It can be something you genuinely enjoy.
That's the dream, right?
Exactly. Turn your passion into profit.
All right, so those are the 5 key financial mistakes to avoid in 2025.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We did, but this is just the beginning. Stay tuned for part 2, where we're going to dive even deeper into these topics and explore some practical tools and strategies.
Can't wait.
All right, we'll see you soon.
Welcome back to our financial fire drill.
It's great to be back. We're picking up where we left off, delving deeper into those 5 money mistakes we should try to avoid making in 2025.
I think it's so interesting how they all connect to each other. You know?
Yeah, it's like a financial domino effect.
Exactly. Like, one mistake can trigger a whole chain reaction.
So let's revisit that first mistake, living paycheck to paycheck. Patrick from SmartPodcast really get on how important tracking your spending is and making a budget. And, you know, I used to be so intimidated by budgeting.
Me too.
But now I see it as a way to take control.
It's empowering.
It is. It's not about restricting yourself.
Right.
It's about making informed choices about where your money goes. And remember that 50-30-20 rule we talked about?
Oh, yeah. 50 for needs, 30 wants 20 for savings and investments.
Exactly. It's a great framework to start with. And don't forget about those budgeting apps.
So helpful.
Like Mint or YNIB. They can really help you stay on track.
You know what's really cool is how budgeting can actually shift your mindset about money.
How so?
Well, instead of just seeing it as something that disappears every month,
Yeah,
you start to see it as a tool to achieve your goals.
I like that.
Yeah, it's about making conscious choices rather than letting your spending just happen on autopilot.
Okay, so let's connect this back to mistake number 2, ignoring inflation and not investing. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, it can feel impossible to find any extra money to invest.
That's a common struggle, for sure.
It is, but remember Patrick said that even small amounts can make a difference over time.
Especially if you start early.
Right, like even $50 a month in an index fund can grow significantly because of compound growth.
That's the key.
I wish I had understood that concept sooner.
Compound growth?
Yeah, it's like magic.
It kind of is, right? Like you're earning interest on your interest.
It's like a snowball rolling downhill.
Exactly.
Like, just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
And those initial investments, even if they seem small, they start generating their own returns over time. And that's what leads to that exponential growth.
So it's never too late to start.
Never.
Okay, let's shift gears to another mistake that can quickly snowball out of control: misusing credit cards.
Oh, yeah. Those can be dangerous.
They can be like high-interest credit card debt can really sabotage your financial progress.
It's like running a marathon with a weight strapped to your ankle.
I love that analogy.
It's true, though, right? It just weighs you down.
And Patrick's advice on this one was really clear.
What was it?
Treat credit cards like debit cards.
Okay.
Spend only what you can afford to pay off in full every single month.
Avoid those interest charges.
Exactly, because otherwise you're just throwing money away.
And you know what's interesting is that while we want to avoid those high interest charges, building good credit is also important.
It is.
Because if you use credit responsibly and pay your bills on time, that can help you qualify for lower interest rates on loans later on.
So it's all about finding that balance,
Right.
using credit to your advantage without letting it control you. Okay, let's talk about buying a house. Mistake number 4 was buying at the wrong time.
Which can be a really costly mistake.
It can be, and I think a lot of people, especially younger people, feel pressured to buy a house as soon as possible.
Oh, yeah. Like it's this milestone you have to reach.
Right, but Patrick really emphasized that renting isn't always a bad thing.
It's true.
Like sometimes it can actually be the smarter financial choice.
Especially if you're not ready for a mortgage.
Exactly. Or if you value flexibility, like maybe you're not sure where you want to settle down yet.
Or maybe you just like the freedom of being able to move more easily.
And remember, he said that ideally you should have a 20% down payment, a stable income, and you should be planning to stay in the home for at least 5 to 7 years.
It's about making the decision that aligns with your individual goals and circumstances.
Not just doing what everyone else is doing.
Exactly. Okay, let's move on to the last mistake, not having multiple income streams.
This one feels particularly relevant in today's world.
It does, right? Like things are changing so rapidly.
Imagine this. You're relying on a single paycheck and then boom, an unexpected expense pops up.
Uh-oh.
What happens?
You might have to go with the debt.
Exactly.
You might have to reach for those credit cards.
Which leads right back to mistake number 3.
Exactly.
So having those multiple income streams can really create a buffer.
Yeah, it's like a financial safety net.
It is, and there are so many options nowadays.
It's almost overwhelming.
It can be, but that's why it's important to just start exploring and see what resonates with you.
Okay.
Like maybe you have a hobby you could turn into a side hustle.
Or maybe you have some skills that you could offer as freelance services.
Maybe you're a great writer or a graphic designer.
Or maybe you're really good at organizing and you could offer virtual assistant services.
Or maybe you love to bake and you could start selling your treats online.
The possibilities are endless.
They are. It's all about being creative and thinking outside the box.
You know, what I find really inspiring is that a lot of these side hustles or passive income streams, they can actually turn into something that you're really passionate about.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to feel like work.
Right. Like it can be something that brings you joy and fulfillment.
Exactly. And that's the dream, right?
It is. All right. So those are the 5 key financial mistakes we've been talking about.
That's a lot to think about.
It is. But the good news is that we're just getting started. Stay tuned for part 3, where we're going to talk about some practical tools and strategies you can use to avoid these mistakes and manage your money effectively.
I can't wait to get into the nitty-gritty.
We'll see you soon. All right, we're back for the final part of our financial fire drill.
It's been a great journey.
It has. I feel like we've covered so much ground.
We have.
So let's do a super quick recap of those 5 key financial mistakes to avoid in 2025, just to refresh everyone's memory.
Sounds good.
All right, so mistake number 1, living paycheck to paycheck. We talked about how important it is to create a budget and gain control of your spending.
Right, and we talked about that 50-30-20 rule.
Exactly. 50% for your needs, 30% for your wants, and 20% for savings and investments.
But remember, you can adjust those percentages to fit your own situation.
Absolutely. And don't forget about those budgeting apps.
Oh yeah, like Mint and YAB, they can be lifesavers.
They can. All right, mistake number 2, ignoring inflation and not investing.
Oof, that's a big one.
It is. But the key takeaway here is start small, but start now.
Even if it's just a few dollars a month?
Exactly. Consistency is key, and compound growth will work its magic over time.
It's like planting a seed and watching it grow into a tree.
I love that analogy. All right, mistake number 3, misusing credit cards.
It's sneaky little
You
things.
can be sneaky, but remember, treat them like debit cards.
Spend only what you can afford to pay off each month.
Exactly, and avoid those high interest charges.
But at the same time, build good credit.
Yes, because that can save you money in the long run.
Lower interest rates on loans and all that good stuff.
All right, mistake number 4, buying a house at the wrong time.
Ooh, that could be a tough one.
It can be, but remember, renting isn't always a bad thing.
Sometimes it's the smarter choice.
Exactly, especially if you're not financially ready for a mortgage or all the responsibilities that come with homeownership.
Like maintenance and property taxes.
And remember, Patrick's advice, have a 20% down payment, a stable income, and plan to stay in the home for at least 5 to 7 years.
Makes sense.
All right, and finally, mistake number 5, relying on a single income stream.
Ooh, yeah. We talked about how important it is to diversify your income
Especially in today's world.
with all the uncertainty.
Exactly. So explore those side hustles, investments, passive income opportunities.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. All right. So those are the 5 mistakes. Now, let's talk about some proactive steps you can take to boost your financial well-being.
Okay, I'm ready.
One strategy that I found really helpful is automating your savings.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Like set up automatic transfers from your checking account to your savings account every month.
Pay yourself first.
Exactly. Before you even have a chance to spend it.
And speaking of saving, make sure you're taking advantage of any employer-sponsored retirement plans.
Like a 401k.
Exactly. It's basically free money.
Don't leave that on the table.
And another thing, you can try negotiating your bills.
Ooh, I'm not very good at that.
I know, a lot of people aren't. But trust me, it's worth it.
Okay, so how do you do it?
Just call up your service providers and ask for a better rate.
Like my internet provider?
Exactly. Or your cell phone company or your credit card company.
Okay, and what are some tips for negotiating?
Be polite, be prepared, and be persistent. Do you research to know what other providers are offering? Highlight your loyalty as a customer. And don't be afraid to walk away if you're not getting a fair deal.
That's good advice. All right, let's talk about insurance.
Oh yeah, that's important.
It is. It's about protecting your assets.
What kind of insurance do you think is essential?
Well, health insurance is definitely a must-have.
Yeah. You never know when an unexpected medical expense might pop up.
And auto insurance, of course.
If you're driving.
Right, and if you're a homeowner or a renter, you need homeowners or renters insurance.
To protect your belongings.
Exactly.
And you know what I think a lot of people overlook?
What's that?
Disability insurance.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
It can protect your income if you're unable to work due to illness or injury.
So it's like a safety net.
Exactly. All right, let's talk about something that's not so fun to think about: estate planning.
Ugh, I know. It's important, but I always put it off.
It's one of those things that's easy to procrastinate on.
It is, but it's really important to have a plan in place.
So where do you start?
Well, creating a will is a good first step.
Okay, that outlines how you want your assets to be distributed.
Right. And you should also designate beneficiaries for your retirement accounts and any other financial assets you have.
Makes sense. What about a power of attorney?
Yeah, that's important too.
That allows someone you trust to make financial and legal decisions on your behalf if you become incapacitated.
So it's all about having peace of mind, knowing that everything is taken care of.
Exactly. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground in this financial fire drill.
We have, but remember, this is just the beginning.
Right.
Financial success is a journey, not a destination.
It's about making conscious choices, developing healthy habits, and continuously learning and growing.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask for help.
There are so many resources available.
Books, podcasts, workshops, financial advisors.
And don't be afraid to connect with others who are on the same path.
Exactly. Like we're all in this together.
We are. So what's one final thought you want to leave our listeners with?
Remember, you have the power to create your own financial future.
I love that.
It's about taking ownership, making informed decisions, and believing in yourself.
And don't let fear hold you back.
Exactly. All right, that's a wrap on our deep dive into avoiding financial mistakes in 2025.
Thanks for joining us.
We hope you found this information helpful and empowering.
Remember, you got this.
Take care, everyone.